could be described as the holiest day of the year is a day which we call Yom Kippur. It's interesting that in the Torah itself, the day is described as Yom Kippurim in the plural. Instead of the Day of Atonement, the Day of Atonements. If we look carefully at the text, the Torah reveals something interesting. When it gives the instructions of the various stages of atonement which is brought, the atonement is, and part of it is for the Kohen, for Aaron, for his family, the Kohanim, for the children of Israel, and it goes the various people. But there's another element which really is quite surprising. Atonement is also brought for the Mishkan itself. And when we think about that for a second, the first thing, what does it even mean? Why should a Mishkan, why should a building, a tabernacle, why should it need atonement? What could it possibly have done? And the answer is that it was misused. Or the answer is that somehow something which we call tum'ah had penetrated into the Mishkan. In the last couple of chapters prior to this, we learn about the idea of tum'ah, which fundamentally means, it's a very hard word to translate, but it fundamentally means distance from the Mishkan. And there are various types of tum'ah. Each one of them has different degrees of how separate one needs to be from the Mishkan. But what happens if tum'ah, again, the bad translation, or for lack of any other term, impurity, enters into the Mishkan? But on again, more fundamental level, the Mishkan is supposed to be a place of holiness. What happens if it becomes unholy? That's part of what Yom Kippurim is about. To bring about atonement, not just for the people, but for the misuse of the Mishkan itself. And I think that there's an incredible lesson that we can learn from this. When we think about ourselves on Yom Kippur, when we think about ourselves seeking, needing atonement, what we generally do in our minds is, on the first level, we think we don't want to be punished. Which means, on a fundamental level, we see avoidance of punishment as the purpose of atonement. If we begin to think on a little bit of a more elevated level, we'll think actually going back to the words in the Parsha. On this day, God says He's going to give us atonement, to purify us. And that itself becomes very interesting. What's the interplay between those two ideas, atonement and purity? But I want to go back and think about the Mishkan itself, the building itself, the tabernacle itself, which was misused. Because when it comes down to it, when we sin, yes, we've done something wrong. And yes, we really should be afraid of the punishment which may follow. But there's a more fundamental issue. God gave us capability. God created us in the image of God. We've misused that which is holy. So before we even get to those bad things that we've done, which require atonement, there's a more fundamental level. And that is, how have we misused our capabilities? How have we misused our minds? How have we misused our intellect? How have we misused our body? And maybe how have we misused our souls? We are so blessed in so many ways. We're so capable in so many ways. The first thing that we need to do when we seek atonement is to reconsider, how have we desecrated that which is holy? And how we need to redouble those efforts to first purify that which is holy, and then to live up to our capabilities as people who really are created in the image of God.